entry in our series of seminars and webinars from Hendricks Wealth and Estate Management. I'm Jim Hendricks, owner of Hendricks Wealth and Estate Management. I've got a few of my staff members with us as well today, and we've got some special guests from PADS of Elgin, Jen Keller and Katie Early, and they'll be speaking a little bit later. You should see my presentation on your screens, and so we're going to just dive right in. Today's topic is legacy giving. And this is a topic that's very big this time of year, and there are some very time-specific things that we'll be talking about during today's webinar. We're going to talk about some very simple ways to give as part of your overall estate plan and overall giving strategy, and we're going to talk about some more complex ways. We won't dive too deep into those complex ways, but if you ever wanted to learn more about any of these things, you can always feel free to reach out to us, and we'll have some ways to do that throughout this webinar. You can see right on the bottom of your screen right now, you can see our website and our phone number if you wanted to reach out to us, and we'll repost those again later. But for now, we're just going we're going to get started by just talking about really the basic concept of what is legacy giving. So legacy giving, most of us donate to charities in some way, shape, or form, but there's ways to do it as part of a more strategic part of your overall giving strategy. And legacy giving is the intentional and thoughtful planning and process that goes into, and the documentation behind the ideas that will ensure that a charity or other nonprofit organization receives some of your assets at some later point in time. And that's most commonly as part of your estate plan, which could be through a couple different ways. The benefits of legacy giving are that for both the donor and for the charity or the 501c3 that you are intending to help. The benefits for the charity are kind of obvious, but oftentimes for charities that do have a department or a staff that is dedicated to trying to focus on legacy giving, then often legacy giving is the largest single sum that these charitable organizations will receive. A lot of times you'll hear of, even it makes the news sometimes, when somebody left a very large piece of their estate to a charity. Sometimes that'll even make the headlines. And bequests for a typical charity will account for about 8 to 10% of all dollars donated. I think that the folks at PADS today said they received a donation as part of a planned giving strategy today, which was kind of interesting and timely. And we're going to have ways for you to do that later today, potentially. But charities that work to develop robust programs can receive 20 to 40% of their revenues from legacy giving. And a good example of that is American Cancer Society. They receive several multi-million-dollar bequests yearly. We'll talk about what bequests are in just a minute. But they receive several multi-million-dollar bequests yearly, and that's part of their core business model. They plan to get those year in and year out. The benefits for the donor are in many of these strategies that we're going to talk about today, not all of them, but in many of them, the donor will receive a present tax deduction for any gifts that they give in the future. So you can commit yourself to giving a gift in the future, but you're going to get a tax deduction for it today in some cases. It can also, a very big portion of legacy giving is it helps avoid estate tax for larger estates. Now here at Hendricks Wealth and Estate Management, we have two offices. We have one in Algonquin, Illinois, which is where Sean Hendricks, who's on this presentation, is sitting today. And we have one in Bradenton, Florida, which is where Tom Anderson and I, from my staff, are sitting today. And estate taxes are very different in those two states. Illinois has an estate tax on any estates that are larger than $4 million, whereas Florida does not have any estate tax. So people in Florida don't need to worry about the state estate tax levels so much, but they might need to worry about the federal estate tax levels, whereas Illinois residents much more have to worry about the state estate tax limits than the federal estate tax. Federal estate taxes for a married couple start at about $30 million a state, so much higher than the Illinois limit of $4 million. But if you own properties and investment accounts, and if you have retirement accounts that have grown over time, it is not entirely uncommon for what are today's mass affluent to have estates that would be worth $4 million, and anything above $4 million is subject to the Illinois estate tax. And one way to get around that is to leave some of your estate to charities through part of your estate planning process. So you can help avoid those larger taxes by using donations as part of your estate planning program. Also, it gives you a peace of mind that the cause that is close to your heart will be provided for as part of your estate settlement, and it can be set up in conjunction with financially providing for loved ones. So you can set up conditions in some cases where you say, I want to make sure if I leave a spouse behind, my spouse is taken care of for the rest of his or her life. But then after that, the charity gets to step in once that second person passes away. And you can all make that all part of a core giving strategy. There are 6 main types of strategic planning gifts that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to spend a little more time on some of them than others. And again, some of these are very simple, and some of them are very complex. And they kind of start at the simple ones at the top of the list there, and they go down to the very complex. So starting with very simple things are bequests. We're going to be talking about beneficiary designations, which all of you, everybody listening here could do this today if they wanted to. You could do beneficiary designations. Qualified charitable distributions, which is becoming increasingly popular. Donor advised funds, which are also becoming increasingly popular. And then we've got some pretty complex things that we're just going to touch a little bit on, and those are called charitable remainder trusts and charitable lead trusts. And those involve some more advanced planning, but we're at least going to talk about them a little bit today. We won't dive too deep, but we'll talk a little bit about them. And by the way, if you have the ability to ask questions, there's a Q&A section down in the bottom, so you can click that. That'll prompt us to let us know that you've got a question. And if we have time at the end, we'll answer all the questions at the end. If not, we'll answer your questions after the fact, after the webinar today. But please do leave those questions if you've got them, and we'll try to leave some time to address them. And that can be for either me or for our friends over at PADS, if you had specific questions for PADS. So bequests. So we start with a quote. It is not how much we give, but how much love we put into giving. That's Mother Teresa, who's pictured there on the right of your screen. Bequests are pretty simple. They're gifts that are made via a will or a living trust. So if you name something to a charity in your will, then, or as part of a trust, then that it will be what happens with that asset when your estate is settled. So if you name PADS as a 5% beneficiary of your estate, then PADS will receive 5% of your estate upon your passing, whether that's by trust or by will. It's very, very simple to do. You don't need to set up a separate trust. So if you've got a trust, you don't need to set up a special one just for the charitable portions. You can leave it as part of your main living trust. No assets need to be transferred to the donor from the donor while you're living. It is revocable, so you can change your mind whenever you want to. You're not locked into that decision if you decide to do it. You do get estate tax relief. So if you leave something as part of your will to go to a charity, and you've got a $4.1 million estate, and you leave $105,000 to a charity as part of your estate settlement process in Illinois, then your estate will not be subject to estate tax in Illinois. You can do this as a dollar amount. So you can say, I want to leave $10,000. You can do it as a percentage. So you can say, I want to leave 5%. Or you can make it contingent. You can say, if my spouse predeceases me, then I want everything to go to the charity. But if my spouse outlives me, then I want everything to go to my spouse. So you can do it a number of different ways. And it can be done in conjunction with making a tax efficient estate plan. We're going to talk about that a little more once we get into the beneficiary portion of this, which is the next section. However, when you leave something via will or a trust, you do not get a present tax deduction. So if I say I'm going to leave 5% of my estate to PADS, that doesn't give me a tax deduction today, but it will not count against my estate. Those assets will not count against my estate upon settlement of my estate. All right, next. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service of others. That's Mahatma Gandhi. And now we're going to talk about beneficiary designations. So this is becoming a very big part of estate planning in general and charitable planning. It is a very tax efficient way to leave taxable accounts such as IRAs to charity. If you've got a 401k through work, and then after you're done working, you roll that to an IRA and you're managing that, or have an advisor managing it for you throughout your life, and it ends up growing more than you expected it did, or if there's going to be money left over there and you want to leave some of that to charity, you can just name that charity as a beneficiary of that IRA. And we generally recommend for people to leave charities as beneficiaries of IRAs if you're going to leave any part of your estate, because the charity will not pay tax on those funds And otherwise, somebody, someday, some way, somehow, is going to pay tax on those monies. So one way to make sure that nobody will ever pay tax on those monies is to leave them as leave the charity as a beneficiary of your IRA. And again, this can be an excellent part of a tax efficient estate plan. Very, very quickly, we'll talk about how to make a tax efficient estate plan. This can be, we'll have another whole presentation about this in a few weeks. But when you're talking about estate planning, let's say you have 3 beneficiaries and you also want to leave a charitable beneficiary. Let's say that one of your beneficiaries, one of your 3 children, is a very high earner, 2 of them are very low earners, and you want to leave a charity. Well, your IRAs are going to be taxable to somebody in retirement unless you leave them to charity. So we'd rather have you leave your IRAs to your lower earning children and the charity. And then you leave things like Roth IRAs or things that will not be taxed, like your house or bank accounts. Leave those to your higher earning beneficiaries, and that will make the whole settlement of your entire estate more tax efficient. And in many cases, we're talking about saving 4, 5, 6, or when charities are involved, even 7, 8, 9% of people's estates just by planning things out in a tax efficient nature. And again, I'd expect people to have maybe questions about that if you're watching, and we're happy to talk about that with people. If you have specific questions about that, feel free to give us a call, and we're happy to try to put a tax efficient beneficiary plan together for you. A charity can be named as a transfer on death designation on an investment account or a bank account. So if you've got a joint bank account and after the second of you passes away between you and your spouse, you want some of that to go to charity, you can just name that charity right now today as a transfer on death beneficiary. And we're going to show you PAD specific information later on during this presentation. Let's see, what else we're going to talk about here. We're going to talk about charities can be named as either primary or secondary beneficiaries on things, and this can be done on life insurance contracts as well. So if you have life insurance, as we get older, our need for life insurance tends to drop, but our policies don't tend to drop. So if you have more than what you're going to need and you'd like to be charitably inclined and you'd like for those life insurance proceeds to not be part of your taxable estate, then you can gift some of those to charities as well, and you can name a charity as a beneficiary of any existing life insurance policies. And again, for anytime you do leave a charity as a beneficiary of an account, then that does not give you a present tax deduction either, just like the bequest did not, neither does a beneficiary designation. Okay, whoops. Looks like I have an older version of this presentation here. I'm sorry about that. Wow. All right, I'm going to pause this for just 1 minute. Technical difficulties, sorry. Hopefully this will take me just a minute to fix here. Sorry about this. All right, hopefully this will be better. Okay, hopefully I'm back again. Sorry about that. I had an old presentation of this on my screen, and I didn't realize it when I did my test. The first pages were all the same. Hopefully this will be, no, this is an old one too. Shoot. Well, I'm going to talk about donor advised funds. I don't know what happened here to my presentation. I'm really sorry about this. This is not the version that I had saved, and on our server somehow an old version has replaced our current version of this. So donor advised funds are becoming very, very popular right now, and they are a way it's a way to give a donation right now. So with a donor advised fund, you can set up an account, a special investment account, fund it right now, and you do get a present tax deduction for your donor advised fund. So if you wanted to put away $60,000 as a round number right now and not have that money go to charity for maybe 1 or 2 or 3, 4 years down the road, then you can do that and you get a deduction for that full amount today. The nice thing about that, the reason I mentioned $60,000 is because this donor advised funds are used as part of a pooling strategy whereby if with our standard deductions, normally if you're giving a donation, you have to give more than your standard deduction in order to get a full tax deduction, an itemized deduction on your tax return for those donations. So if a joint couple gives $20,000 a year to a charity and they don't go over their itemized deduction, they get a standard deduction of $30,000. That's the regular standard deduction for a joint couple right now. For anybody who does that, if you instead give to a donor advised fund and do that in 1 year, you'll get your itemized deductions for that year, getting a $60,000 deduction. And then in the future years, you can still take your standard deductions, get your full standard deduction. And doing that strategy, giving $60,000 total charity one time instead of $20,000 a year, results in getting $120,000 of deductions when you do it via donor advised fund versus just $90,000 of deductions by just giving $20,000 a year to charity and then getting your standard deduction. So that saves a couple $30,000 in taxable income. In the 22% tax rate, that would translate to a $2,200 tax savings, which is fairly measurable. So again, I'm sorry I don't have my slides. Boy, we're really feeling pretty bad about. I feel pretty bad about not having this on.
Jim, I have your presentation from your email. Do you want me to share it because it has the updated slides?
Can you share your screen? I'm not sure you can share your screen.
It says I can.
Okay, let me try to stop sharing. I'm sorry about this. Okay, if you can share.
Yeah, that one.
Sean, do you have? Yeah, there we go.
It's there, right?
Okay, there we go. That's better than nothing. That's not in presentation mode just yet. So if you click that little.
I can do that. Slideshow from current slide.
There's that. Yeah, if you click down. If you go down underneath the H in Hendrix, there's a little square with looks like a little T underneath it. To your right and down. Now down. Right? Yeah, you were close. Huh. I lost your cursor. I don't see your cursor anymore. There. Okay, now down from there. It's on the bottom right of the screen, towards the bottom right, to the left of the slider. It looks like a little square with a little T underneath it and those little 4 graphics down on the bottom.
Get rid of that.
Okay.
You see the word display settings on the bottom, on the very bottom, and go right.
Over here.
Oh.
Maybe?
No. Hold on.
Get down there.
Sorry. I just lost. Oh, come on. From current slide. Jim, what are you trying to get me to do? So,
well, anyway, we can just do it from here, and we can just go from here. This is better than nothing. So, donor advised funds, again, they are tax deductible when the donor advised fund is funded, and then funds can be passed to charities in later years. So you can pick whatever charity you'd like, whatever 501c3 you designate, can be named as the beneficiary of that donation as time goes by. Those funds can remain invested in that 501c3, or I'm sorry, in that donor advised fund. And then again, you can still earn, if those funds remain invested, you can get stock market level of returns for those over a number of years before you decide to turn those funds over to a charity. And again, like I mentioned before, it does allow pooling of your deductions. The growth in the account is tax-free because the charity is going to end up with those funds, and you've already committed giving those funds to charity when you put the funds into the donor advised fund. Again, the donations are not part of the taxable estate, and another advantage of that is the growth happens outside of your taxable estate. So by giving funds to a donor advised fund, you eliminate the money from your taxable estate, and then a lot of times when people have taxable estates, it's because all of the value of their assets are growing as they're going through life. But when you give money to a donor advised fund, all that growth happens outside of your estate. It's a way to get a tax deduction presently and get tax-free growth as well. For our clients, we reduce our advisory fee to 50% of our regular fee for any donor advised funds. So, so if your advisory fee is 1%, then your fee for us would be 50 basis points or 0.5% for any donor advised funds that we manage, because we want to provide an incentive for our clients to be charitably inclined as well. Donor advised funds can be left as a beneficiary of an IRA, and you can designate a specific charity to receive the assets after death. So you can set up a charity as a beneficiary of your donor advised fund once you pass on. So that's a quick rundown of donor advised funds. Maybe we can go to the next slide there. Again, I'm really sorry about this. I don't know what happened to our presentation on our server.
So is this, I think you've talked about this stuff already.
All right, I'm going to try again too. Maybe Sean, can you get our current, is our current presentation anywhere?
Would be under send email, right?
Or if you want to email, if Jen, if you could email that
Yeah, I
presentation.
can, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing and I will
Okay.
send it back to you, okay?
Mhm.
Jim, I got it on mine if you
Oh.
need either.
I just sent it back to you, Jim.
Okay. All right, I'm opening it. Then I will start sharing again. All right, I think I'm going to be up and running here very shortly. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen again, and we will be back in business once I can catch up to where we were here. All right, we went through donor advised funds. Here's an example of how a donor advised fund might work. Let's say Bob and Jane want to make a $20,000 annual gift. This is kind of the example I walked through before, but they want to make a $20,000 annual gift to PADS. Normally, this would not exceed their standard deduction, so they would not receive a tax deduction for their donation. So if they donate $20,000 for each of the next 3 years, they're only going to receive their standard deduction, which for 2025 would be $90,000 in total deductions, $30,000 for 2025, 2026, and 2027. By donating $60,000 in 2025 and then nothing in 2026 and 2027, they'll qualify for their itemized deductions in 2025. So they'll get a $60,000 deduction in 2025 and their standard deductions in both 2026 and 2027, bringing their total deductions to $120,000. And so that's a difference of $30,000. $30,000 times 22% is a difference of $6,600 in their taxes. Just by giving the same amount of money that they would have given already before, you can be $6,600 more effective, and that allows you to either donate $6,600 more or keep $6,600 in your pocket by just doing the exact same amount of giving. And right now, 2025 is a really, really, really good year to do this. I know time is running short in 2025, but starting in 2026, any charitable deductions that you have to go over 0.5% of your modified adjusted gross income in order to qualify for an itemized deduction on your taxes. So what that does is it effectively puts a floor under how much you must donate in order to receive any deduction at all. Furthermore, there's going to be an upper limit of 35% of MAGI for anybody who gives. So you can't give more than 35% of your adjusted gross income in 2026 and beyond as well. So this pooling strategy is most effective now in 2025, and it might not be ever more effective than it is this year. So this year is a really, really, really good year to give to a donor advised fund. So now that you've had enough of my disorganization, I'm going to hand it over to some organized people, and we're going to let Jen Keller from PADS take the mic for a little bit. Jen, take it away.
Hi, everybody. I just want to tell you a little bit about PADS in case you're not familiar with our organization. PADS stands for Public Action to Deliver Shelter. For those of you that are in Illinois, we're located 2 blocks north of Elgin Community College. Here in Elgin, we are a congregate homeless shelter. We sometimes get confused for animal shelters. We shelter people here. In our last fiscal year, we provided over 12,000 nights of shelter and over 37,000 meals, in addition to 3,200 visits into our drop-in outreach lobby. In all of last year, we housed 38 guests into sustainable housing, but since May of this year, we've already housed 20, and we have a whole smattering of guests right now that are lined up to be housed. And as Jim mentioned, this is a really important time in the year to look at these donor advised funds. It's also an incredibly important time for PADS. We are currently experiencing a major funding gap. COVID era funding has sunset on us, and we don't have any federal or state funding that's coming in to replace that. That is leaving us currently with a $500,000 funding gap. We have had some very generous local community member donors that have currently raised us $200,000 towards that $500,000 gap, but that $300,000 is still a pretty substantial gap that we're trying to raise. So if you are interested in learning more about PADS or about how you can donate to us, I have our contact information on our website. I'm more than happy to answer questions about the work that we're doing. We're a really special team of people that do some special work for some really, really special people in our community. And I would love the opportunity to tell you more about the work that we're doing. If anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or my email is on there and I'd love to talk to you.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. And as for our organization, we're going to commit to donating $1,500 to PADS today, and then we'll match that for if anybody attends who mentions this webinar and donates to PADS, we'll match that with another $1,500 for the first $1,500 that comes in. So
Thank you,
we want to
Jim.
do our part
Thank you
to help
so much.
community organizations, and that's part of why we're doing some of these webinars that we're doing here. We're trying to be heavily involved with our community. So we're going to talk briefly. We are running, because of our technical difficulties we've had, we're running a little late, and we're getting to the more complex areas of charitable giving. So we're just going to very quickly touch on charitable remainder trusts. This is a special type of irrevocable trust. It's very common for the wealthy to do something like this as an estate tax planning strategy. It allows the grantor or the creator of the trust or another beneficiary to receive income for a specified period of time. And then after that specified period of time, the remainder of the assets go to the charity. That's why it's called a charitable remainder trust. Anything that's left in the trust, once the purpose of the trust has provided for income for the beneficiary, then whatever's left over at the end goes to the charity. It's a good method for donating appreciated assets. So let's say you've got some NVIDIA stock that has grown exponentially over the last 10 years, and you now have more money than you ever know what to do with. A really good thing to do with some of that might be to put it into a charitable remainder trust, because it lets you avoid the tax on the gain of whatever you donate into that trust, and it also removes that money from your estate. And you can use that to provide a reliable income stream for you or your beneficiaries for whatever you deem to be the term of the trust, which is often the donor or the grantor's lifetime or the lifetime of a beneficiary. Again, you avoid capital gains by selling the assets in that trust. Once it's in the trust, you sell it, you avoid capital gains taxes. Assets in the trust are removed from the taxable estate. And also it can be effective for elimination of gift tax to younger generations. That starts to get a little complex, but we can reduce the taxable effect of your estate on future generations by using charitable remainder trusts. And the formula for doing that is a bit of a complex formula, but it can offset up to 30%. Your deduction can offset up to 30% of your adjusted gross income. And anything that you don't get to use, so if you have a larger donation than 30% of your adjusted gross income, you can carry that forward for up to 5 years. There's two main types of charitable remainder trusts. There's what they call CRATs and CRUTs. Charitable remainder annuity trusts, which pay fixed dollar amounts to the grantor, to the beneficiary each year, and charitable remainder unit trusts, which are a little bit more popular. And they're more popular because they can pay a variable amount every year. It might be a fixed percentage, but because those funds could be invested, it could be a variable amount that goes to the beneficiary each year, which can allow for some inflation adjustment. Again, these are complex instruments, and they do require tax, financial, and legal professionals to help you meet your financial and philanthropic goals. Then there are charitable lead trusts, and that is what it means. The charitable starts off with the charity gets paid first, and then the remainder goes to the beneficiary. And this is primarily used by uber wealthy taxpayers. It does minimize estate and gift tax to heirs. This is an irrevocable trust, meaning once you do it, you can't change your mind. It's irrevocable. And the lead is the charity, so the charity receives an annual income payment for the trust for a specified period of time, and then the remainder goes to a non-charitable beneficiary. Typically, that would be the children or the grandchildren of the person who created the trust, or the grantor. So advantages, you get to give a gift at a discounted value today, and then most of that growth can happen outside of the estate. There is a complex formula to come up with that, but we can help you determine how that would affect you, or how you could use that effectively if that's part of what you'd like to talk about as part of your giving estate plan. It is a growth shelter. Again, the growth happens outside of the estate. There are two types of charitable lead trust. There's a grantor charitable lead trust and a non-grantor charitable lead trust. In a grantor, the donor receives the remainder, so that's the person who created it receives the remainder. And in a non-grantor, which is the more common, then the heirs receive the remainder. So in summary, legacy giving is an excellent way to provide for meaningful revenue for a charity or nonprofit. The two most common ways, so of the things we've talked about today, the two most common ways that you can really make a difference, I would say, would be with any required minimum distributions that have to come out of your IRAs. Those can be done as qualified charitable distributions directly to an IRA. That's one way to very effectively do this. And then the other is with a donor advised fund. Again, we didn't quite get the time that I wanted to talk about those today, but we're kind of running low on time here. I will probably try to redo this presentation all over again, fresh from scratch, once we can make sure we've got the right presentation loaded up, kind of do a take two. So again, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties we've had today. I do not see any Q&A. We do have some more presentations coming up. These presentations we're doing once a week. We have a different topic every week. Next week will be Jim Madel from our staff talking about facing common financial fears, just trying to remain calm, and so having a calm approach to investing. And then Dan Leitner on our staff is going to speak on November 5th, and he's going to talk about how there is no need to rush when paying off your mortgage for most people. And then Sean will speak the week after that, and to talk about major life events and how a financial advisor can help. And then the week after that, I think Tom just picked his topic very recently for what he's going to be talking about, but he'll be center stage on November 19th. You can learn more on our website, www.hendrickswealth.com/events, to sign up for these. Again, they are a regular series. They're also available on YouTube. Again, I will be refurbing this one to make it look a little prettier for YouTube, in case you saw this and saw us fumbling over not having the right slides on board, but I'll fix it and we'll make it look nice and pretty for what shows up on YouTube. And if we have any questions, we're happy to try to field those now. And it looks like we don't have any questions popping in. So thank you for attending. Again, these are available on YouTube, and it'll be we'll try to make it available on our Facebook page as well. We did not get this presentation launched on Facebook, but we'll make it available on Facebook as well. And if you have any questions after the fact, you can always feel free to call us at 847-428-3997 or email us at info@hendrickswealth.com. Thanks for attending, everybody.